Hey, welcome to Nice and Blunt. My name is Adam Riancho, and you're watching Fourth and 20. This is where we go over Hail Mary types of plays in fantasy football. These are also great options in DFS if you are desperate for a win. If you just this week doesn't really matter because you already have a playoff spot and you want to just swing for the fences, have some fun, then these are some good Hail Mary options. But especially in DFS, I like these guys a lot. So before we get into it, I'll just talk about my fourth and 20 play calls last week. They were Cole Beasley, Michael Pittman, Christian Kirk, Nelson Aguilar, and Jordan Reed. And while none of them hit the 20-point threshold that we are hoping for, two of them did not disappoint you. They put up decent games. That'd be Cole Beasley and Nelson Aguilar with about 8 half PPR points each. And then the other guys had about 3 points each, so they underperformed. But the logic was pretty sound. I was mentioning that Christian Kirk, Nelson Aguilar, and Jordan Reed had averaged 6 targets in their previous games, and last week all three of them had 6 targets. Michael Pittman Jr. only caught 2 of his 9 targets, but if he's able to connect on more, then definitely there's more fantasy points to be had. So the only one that had a very strange game that was unexpected was Cole Beasley. He only had 4 targets, but he did throw a touchdown pass. So that speaks to how they want to get him involved and what he means to their offense. My dog just entered the room, so that's what that noise and the door moving is about. Hello, I'm doing something. Oh, okay, okay, I'll be back. Anyways, um, I still like all 5 of those players this week, but we're not going to give you the same play call uh, each week, so that's why I'm going to mix it up. But if you want to play any of them, I still like them as pretty good options with upside this week, especially Michael Pittman and Cole Beasley. Also Nelson Aguilar, those three especially. But this week is all about new guys, and just before we get into it, I just like to bring up the DFS lineup that I brought up last week. In FanDuel, I recommended Mahomes as the quarterback, Nick Chubb and Leonard Fournette as your running backs, Tyreek Hill, Cole Beasley, and Nelson Aguilar as your wide receivers, Jordan Reed as the tight end, Travis Kelce as the flex, and the Saints defense. And altogether, they put up 156.5 fantasy points. Obviously, that was on the crux of the Mahomes Hill stack. But that's kind of the reason why you play some of these cheaper options like Aguilar, Beasley, and Fournette, because it allows you to have that safe stack like a Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce. And also Nick Chubb was in there. So obviously 156 isn't a elite 200 point score, but it's definitely enough to win you some money in DFS. I entered it and I more than doubled my money last week. So that is it in terms of the recap. And now we're going to get into the fourth and 20 play calls for week 13. First up, I've got running back Jamal Williams. So Jamal Williams is $5,200 on FanDuel. He's 48% owned and 10% started in ESPN leagues. He's got 46% of the total snaps in the last 3 games. That's not just like one of those games. That's all 3 together. 46 to 54 split behind Aaron Jones. So he's getting a lot of work, almost as much as Aaron Jones, which is kind of going under the radar because he's had also a 2-to-1 touchdown advantage since week 10 over Jones. He's had a few more goal line looks and a few more opportunities, whether he's catching those touchdowns or running them in. He's been scoring a little bit more, so keep an eye out. He outscored Aaron Jones last week, and he has the potential to do it again. The running backs basically set the tone for this Green Bay offense, and now that we're in December, now that it's a bit colder, they're going to run the ball a little even more. They did last year. In December of last year, Aaron Jones had 3 100-yard games, and Jamal Williams didn't play in all of those. So expect Green Bay to use their running backs, and Jamal Williams is always going to be involved. He's a very underrated player, in my opinion. Very reliable, and if anything were to happen to Aaron Jones, then he has top 5 upside and has league winning potential. Next up, we got Breshad Perriman of the New York Jets. Now, before you say, hold on, why the hell would I start a Jet? Let's look at Breshad Perriman's stats in the last 5 games. Since week 6, he's played in 5 games, and he's averaged 6 targets per game, 3.5 receptions per game, 65 yards per game average, which means 19 yards a catch. 19 yards a catch is quite a bit. That's pretty good. That's really high for a wide receiver. And he's also had 3 touchdowns in those 5 games. So not amazing, but it's not like he's not getting any touchdowns either. So he definitely has that upside, and it's pretty reasonable to expect 4 in 6 games. So another reason why I love him this week is because Las Vegas, his opponent, is giving up 200 yards per game and 2 wide receivers. And in their last 7 games, let me say that again a bit more succinctly. Las Vegas, in their last 7 games, and that's not including the bad weather game in Cleveland. I'm throwing that out because that doesn't really represent a realistic NFL game. They've given up an average of 200 yards per game to wide receivers. And in those 7 games, they've given up 11 touchdowns to wide receivers. So I could easily see Breshad Perriman get a touchdown in this game. I could easily see him approach, if not surpass, 100 yards receiving. And I feel like he's my favorite pick in terms of the Jets wide receivers. This could be a bit of a shootout game against Oakland and the Jets. Neither defense is good. And here's his price on FanDuel, $5,900. That's pretty cheap. That's not anything to sneeze at. He's a pretty good option for a low price, and he could easily go off for 20 points. He's 16% owned in ESPN leagues and only 3% started. So obviously he's very risky. Obviously people don't want to start him, but that means he's a good contrarian play. He's not going to have as much roster percentage as other people. So if he goes off, you can be one of the few people that benefits from that type of scoring. From Breshad Perriman. So we've given you 1 running back, 1 wide receiver. How about a quarterback? There's a lot of great streaming options this week. There's a lot of players with great matchups, but I feel like they are kind of going to disappoint. These are names like Kirk Cousins, Ryan Fitzpatrick, even Derek Carr. He might bounce back against the Jets, but I wouldn't expect him to go off. And that's why I like Mitchell Trubisky. He's playing Detroit. And before you completely scoff at me and say Mitchell Trubisky can't do shit, why would I start him? On FanDuel, he's only worth $6,900, which is pretty cheap. He's owned in 13% of ESPN leagues and only started in 8%, so obviously nobody wants to touch him. But in his past 4 games versus Detroit, he is facing Detroit this week. We're throwing out his rookie stats because those kind of don't really count. But in his past 4 games, he has won all 4 games with an average passer rating of 125. Now, that's way above his career marks. So obviously he has a good history again when facing Detroit. In those games, he's averaged 277 yards passing per game, and he's had 3 touchdowns in all 4 games. So that's 12 touchdowns and only 1 interception in all 4 games. So he seems to figure it out against Detroit. It's a good matchup for him. He seems to be comfortable. Last time they played early this season, he threw 3 touchdown passes in the 4th quarter to come back and lead them to a victory. I think that was the last game that he finished before they ended up benching him for Nick Foles. But Nick Foles is not going to come back off the bench, so Trubisky will have all 4 quarters to himself. And I feel like only Cam Newton and Taysom Hill have more rushing upside among streaming quarterbacks this week. Trubisky still has that dual threat. He can run the ball. He's not amazing at it ever since he got hurt last year, I believe. It's been a bit dicey in terms of his decision making and desire to run the ball, but when he does have some speed, and he could get you an easy 30, 40 yards rushing to kind of bolster that floor and I think pay off in terms of value on FanDuel. 6,900 for a quarterback is pretty cheap. Next at tight end, this one much more of a gut call than based on statistics. I've got Darren Fells of the Houston Texans. He's worth 4,800 on FanDuel. He's only 2% owned in ESPN and only started in 0.3%. So you got to be really desperate to play him in a season long redraft league. But on FanDuel, it becomes a little bit more interesting. 4,800 is a very low price, and Will Fuller's gone. Will Fuller has been suspended. He was taking them steroids or whatever the hell he was putting in his body, and we can't expect him to be back even maybe even next year. But Darren Fells has proven a good goal line chemistry with Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Watson, even in this bad matchup against Indianapolis, can always figure something out. So I just like Fells a little bit more than Akins. Randall Cobb isn't going to play. I don't really trust Kiki Cutie, and I feel like they're going to cover Brandon Cooks with a lot more attention and um, than they are anybody else on this team. So I like Darren Fells as a Hail Mary tight end play. Tight ends are always super fluky. Anyone outside the top four is a huge dart throw. And why not take a chance on Darren Fells? He's very cheap, and he's proven he can have multiple touchdowns in the same game when he's on the field with Deshaun Watson. So uh, I'm taking a shot on Darren Fells, purely a gut call here. I can't really endorse it with stats. I just I want to take a chance. I feel lucky, and I'm going with Darren Fells. Lastly, a defense. The New England Patriots defense. They're facing the Chargers in Los Angeles, so they are traveling across the country, but they aren't getting the bad jet lag before they arrive. They're gaining 3 hours when they arrive in Los Angeles. But they're only $3,700 in FanDuel. That's one of the the cheapest defenses they have. They're 47% owned and, excuse me, 30% started on ESPN. And the reason I like them is kind of obvious. There's a clear coaching mismatch here with the Patriots against the Chargers. They had a playoff game 2 seasons ago where the first quarter started with about a 10-minute drive by the Patriots. They won the coin toss and elected to receive the ball, and they kept the Chargers off the field in the first quarter for over 10 minutes. By halftime, they were up by, I think, 3 touchdowns, and the game was basically over. I expect a similar game plan with a very lopsided time of possession in favor of the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick is very notorious for just overwhelming rookie quarterbacks and not really allowing them to do anything. He shut down, at least his game plan, shut down Kyler Murray last week, who, even though he's not a rookie, he's still a very young quarterback. And that was another very, very stark coaching mismatch. I don't think you can put Anthony Lynn or Cliff Kingsbury anywhere near the elite tier that Bill Belichick is in. So that's why I like the Patriots this week. I'm banking on Bill Belichick and his expertise, and I think it's a good call. So I like all 5 of these guys. There's one for each position. And if you like this video, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and feel free to hit up my Instagram page at Nice and Blunt for more rankings and analysis. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great weekend. Good luck in week 13.